I couldn't stand sharing a basement apartment with my ex, so I dumped him. 5 years later, I'd killed myself working overtime and finally bought a 300-square-foot condo downtown. My window faced a giant billboard of my ex-ex's face, plastered with a luxury brand ad. That smug, challenging look. Damn, it was the same look he gave me late at night, when he was on top of me. Right after I made the down payment, the celebrity I worked for imploded. Lost my job and nearly my condo too. My friend, a talent agent, tried to hook me up with other agencies. No luck. Either I was too old, or I was bad juju, because of my connection to the fallen star. Actually, there is one more possibility, she said. Who? Ethan Cole. My hand froze, halfway to grabbing a beer from the fridge. I didn't mention him before, because he's huge. Without connections, you'd have zero chance. But I sent your resume anyway, and they actually want you to interview. Do you know him? I popped open the beer, the fizz hissing. I'd spent 5 years in that basement with him. I was the one who walked away. People without resources can't make it in Hollywood, Ethan. I don't want to struggle with you. He'd watched, cold-eyed, as I moved out. But he blocked the doorway. Wasn't I good to you? He was. He cooked, cleaned, and gave me all the money he earned as an extra. But it wasn't enough. I can't spend years scraping by. This isn't the life I want. What if I make it big? You won't. What if I do? He gripped my wrist, insistent. He still didn't get it. He wanted a dream. I wanted reality. Ethan, even if you become a superstar, I won't come back. I had to be brutal, so he'd let go. He finally stepped aside. Fine. Beer foam spilled onto my hand. I wiped it off, then looked up at the illuminated billboard across the street. Ethan Cole's face. That smug, challenging look. Damn, just like when. He always seemed so cool and collected. Proud, almost arrogant. He might have tried to stop me once, but once he was done, he was done. He wouldn't look back. Neither would I. I don't know him, I told my friend. She paused, then said, being his assistant would be huge for your career as an agent. Plus, he's notoriously generous with his staff. Great salary, insane bonuses. Forget a 300-square-foot condo, you could get a penthouse. My phone buzzed. A mortgage payment reminder. I was a practical person. I needed a job, a well-paying one. Okay, I'll try. Interview day. I woke up early to put on makeup. It caked. No matter how many times I reapplied, it still looked terrible. My hand trembled as I held the eyebrow pencil. I was nervous. Really nervous. The mirror showed a woman much older than her years. 5 years of 24/7, low-paying work had taken their toll. Ethan's manager interviewed me. He was busy. Glanced at my resume, asked a few perfunctory questions. Liked my experience, but clearly wary of my association with the disgraced celebrity. Did you sleep with him? He asked bluntly. I froze. No. Why not? He raised an eyebrow. Sorry, you don't have to answer if it's too personal. I'd been asked that before. The fallen star had a reputation. Because work is work. I had a boyfriend. A serious one. He looked up. Do you like Ethan Cole? From the 9 years I'd crushed on him, to the year he first kissed me, to the 5 years we were together, to the 5 years since we broke up, no one had ever asked me that. Because I had to protect him. He never acknowledged me publicly, never held my hand. No one knew about us. I'd told myself countless times to be patient, to not be needy. It was all for our future. No, I don't like him. See? I could still lie easily, even though there was no us anymore. Leaving the office, I saw the next interviewee. Young, pretty, with a shy smile, but her infatuation with Ethan was obvious. She made no attempt to hide it. Isn't that Chloe Simmons? I overheard some staff gossiping. You didn't hear? The other interviews are just for show. It's all for her. Wow, talk about playing favorites. He's not worried about fans finding out? He spoils her. Doesn't want her to feel a moment's discomfort. They might even get married, you know? I reached the elevators. Blessedly, the gossip faded. I pressed the button. Thank God he wasn't here. I pressed the button again, impatient to leave. The elevator doors opened, revealing a scattered mess of promotional materials. Sorry, could you help me with these? A woman inside, surrounded by boxes, asked. I helped her gather the items. The doors closed. I'd have to wait for the next one. I reached for the down button again. Another hand, long-fingered and strong, beat me to it. I didn't need to turn around to feel the presence behind me. Ethan, this is the applicant I mentioned, miss. The manager trailed off, forgetting my name. Quinn, I supplied. Quinn Parker. I should have extended my hand. A professional handshake. But I couldn't. I shouldn't have come today. What would his reaction be? Anger? Disgust? Mocking laughter? Knowing him, he'd humiliate me. I mentally prepared myself for the onslaught. Hello, Miss Parker? His expression was neutral. He extended his hand. Our fingers touched for 3 seconds. The calluses on his palm were still there. They'd once grazed the back of my neck. He knew I was ticklish, but he'd pin my wrists with one hand, leaving me helpless. Give in? He'd whisper, teasing. I'd bite my lip, refusing to make a sound. He'd lean in, his breath warm against my ear. Please, Quinn, please. I remembered clearly. It was the first summer in that basement apartment. His dreams were just beginning. We were so full of hope. He'd said he could imagine not becoming famous, but he couldn't imagine not loving me. Now, he withdrew his hand. His eyes were distant, polite. No flicker of recognition. Right, let me fill you in on Miss Parker's qualifications. The manager launched into a summary, oblivious. Ethan stepped into the elevator, clearly disinterested. She has extensive experience. 5 years with her previous client. Unfortunately, he had a meltdown. Personal life imploded. Caught on camera. Yeah, another staff member chimed in. Heard he paid his assistant $500,000 to get an abortion. Ethan's eyes flicked to me, then away. A casual smirk played on his lips. Cheapskate. $500,000? Not Miss Parker, his other assistants, the manager corrected quickly. Miss Parker's in a stable relationship. Ethan's smirk vanished. I forgot to ask, the manager said, narrowing his eyes. Miss Parker, are you married? The elevator descended. I could no longer see Ethan's reflection in the glass. No, I said steadily. It wasn't that kind of relationship. This industry was messy, full of unspoken arrangements. One sentence was all it took for them to understand. The manager dropped the subject. Well, it's good to have options. I'd once said those words to a pre-fame Ethan. He'd scoffed. He was idealistic, disgusted by such things. But now, in his eyes, how was I any different? The elevator doors opened. Ethan walked out without a backward glance. Can you give me this chance? I called after him. I have mortgage payments. I won't quit easily. He turned, one eyebrow arched. Begging won't help. I clutched my bag. I'm a hard worker. I'll do whatever you need. Miss Parker, he interrupted, if you're so good at serving people, why not ask your sugar daddy? What kind of benefactor lets you work a job like this? He stripped me of my dignity with those words. That's enough, the manager snapped. Miss Parker is talking about work. What are you talking about? The manager told me to wait for a call. Usually, that meant no. I stared at my bank balance. Tossed and turned. Finally, I sent a text. Coming over tonight. Need to talk. The reply was instant. Babe. You finally have time for me. Can I come early? I'll shower and everything. Want me to cook? Half an hour later, the doorbell rang. I opened it in my pajamas. 6'2", with intensely captivating eyes, yet an air of untouchable coolness. How could I tell this intimidating creature what I needed to say? I lost my job. I can't pay you anymore. We're done. There. I'd said it. Surprisingly easy. Yes, I was the sugar daddy. Even though my salary was only $1,500 a month, he didn't ask for much. $500 a month for cleaning, laundry, and cooking. Plus, he was ridiculously good-looking. His eyes darkened. He stepped closer. You found someone else? No. You're getting a second, pet? No. This day was coming, wasn't it? You don't love me anymore. No. Is it because, he pondered seriously, I kept going the other night even though you said no? Are you mad? No, I pushed him back. I bought a condo. I have mortgage payments. He walked past me, placing the groceries he'd brought into the fridge. Sweet and sour pork tonight. I stood there, the door still open. I really can't afford you anymore. He closed the refrigerator, turning to face me. Should I talk to your boss? Beg him for a raise? I sighed, turning on the TV. I knew this wouldn't be easy. Until I find a job, I have nothing to give you. He didn't answer. The sound of running water came from the kitchen. Later that night, a thunderstorm raged outside. I was on the couch, watching TV. He was in the shower. In a 300-square-foot condo, every sound was amplified. Like the knock at the door. Who is it? I opened the door. The person on the other side didn't speak. Rain dripped from the tip of their umbrella. They must have been standing there for a while. Can I come in? Before I could answer, they stepped inside. Even his mannerisms were the same. Your sugar daddy lets you live in a place this small? Ethan Cole raised an eyebrow, his smirk fading as he noticed a pair of men's black boots by the door. What do you want? I asked. He's here? He nudged the boots with his foot, his eyes darting to the bathroom, where the water was still running. No, I said, turning away. He's not my sugar daddy. Playing games, are we? He sneered. Sneaking another one in behind his back? Then what are you doing here with me? Looking for a third sponsor? No, I met his gaze. I'm the sugar daddy. I'm the one supporting him. It took him a moment to process. Supporting him? You? You're paying for a man? With your $1,500 salary after mortgage payments? Yes, I confirmed. It only costs me $500 a month. Pretty good deal. He laughed, incredulous. So picky with me about every penny, but now you're keeping a man? Unbelievable. The shower stopped. Steam billowed into the living room. Babe, I forgot my pajamas, a voice called from the bathroom. I ignored Ethan's intense stare. Just a second. But it's cold. Can I come out? Wait, Asher. Ethan's face darkened. What did you call me? I wasn't talking to you. I was talking to. The bathroom door opened. Asher stepped out, wrapped in a towel. And in that moment, Ethan Cole came face to face with a younger version of himself. At least 10 years younger. Huh. Ethan was the first to break the silence. A low, mocking chuckle. Legal now? He asked me. 22. No job? College graduate. Able-bodied but leeching off you? His questions were sharp, accusatory. I instinctively shielded Asher from his scornful gaze. What's it to you? I got you out of that hick town when I was 17, Ethan interrupted, reminding me of something only we knew. Why are you yelling at her? Asher stepped forward, pulling me behind him. Ethan lifted his chin, his voice flat. And who are you to butt in? And who are you to be here? Asher crossed his arms, studying him. What, feeling nostalgic? Isn't this awkward? Nostalgic, Ethan repeated slowly, his gaze fixed on me. He's standing there, wearing my face, talking about nostalgia. Quinn Parker, tell me, who's really not over it? Asher stiffened. In that brief hesitation, Ethan grabbed my hand and pulled me into the bedroom. Click. The lock engaged. I reached for the doorknob, but he pulled me back against him. Ethan Cole, what are you doing? Asher pounded on the door. Ethan unbuttoned his cuffs, his movements deliberate. Same name, he murmured, his loosened tie brushing against my cheek. When you're lying in bed, whispering that name, who are you thinking of? Me or him? I pushed against him. He pinned my wrists. We knew each other's bodies too well. His every move was predictable. Ethan Cole. Yes. He tightened his grip. Say it louder. My full name. Remember who you're saying it to. Don't. Just as I pushed harder, he let go. I stumbled. He looked towards the window. I followed his gaze. The billboard. His face. His luxury brand ad. Reality crashed down, cold and sobering. I was still in my tiny condo. But he wasn't the Ethan Cole from that basement anymore. I knew every inch of his body. But it didn't belong to me anymore. His anger now was just wounded pride, not love. We both knew it. Are you stupid? He tilted my chin up. Finding someone who looks like me, living in a place with my face plastered outside, then coming to me for a job? Trying to make me jealous? Trying to get me back? His eyes were cold, clear. You're the one who dumped me because I was broke. Now you're pulling this sentimental crap? Disgusting. He rebuttoned his cuffs, the momentary lapse of control gone. Drop the act. You need money, right? I'll give you another chance. He looked down at me, a casual cruelty in his eyes. Be my companion. Or be my assistant. Choose one. Companion? What else would you be good for? He tilted his head. Don't tell me you're still delusional enough to think I'm genuinely nostalgic, that I can't live without you? He had his tie fixed now, the earlier disarray vanished. Quinn, why do you always overthink things? Ethan's voice softened, almost like it used to be. Someone like you, you're better suited for. His beautiful eyes glinted, a pay-per-play arrangement. The pounding on the door had stopped. The silence was heavy, amplifying everything within the room. Find someone else, he said to the door, his voice laced with arrogance. You can pound all night. I won't open it. A new voice, deep and authoritative, came from the other side. Open the door. Police. Asher had called the police. When Ethan opened the door, Asher punched him, right in front of the officers. They both ended up at the station. Don't, Asher said, flinching away as I tried to clean the cut on his cheek. A shard of glass had caught him, leaving a thin line of blood. Ethan hadn't touched him. Asher had done it to himself. During those 20 minutes I'd been locked in the bedroom. Do we still look alike? He gripped my hand, his face expressionless. Yes. I was honest. They still looked alike. His expression hardened. He tightened his grip. What do you love about him? He glanced down the hall at Ethan, who was being escorted out by his manager. Ethan looked back, a silent exchange passing between them. His money? Or the fact he rescued you from that dump? I didn't answer, reaching again for the antiseptic wipe. He stopped me. So in love you needed a replacement? So in love you hemorrhaged in a hospital and didn't dare tell him? Asher. I interrupted him. He looked at me, his eyes searching. What if I was richer than him? Would you choose me? Don't be childish. A faint smile played on his lips. He's watching us, babe. What do you think? If I kissed you right now, would he care? He had that reckless streak. He might actually do it. My heart pounded. I tried to pull my hand away, but his eyes, cold and almost unfamiliar, held mine captive. He has money, but he doesn't want you. If I had money, what do you think I'd do? He didn't kiss me. The space between us remained. I'd find a place and keep you all to myself. I looked away. Don't joke. I used you. I'm not a good person. Let's end this. Footsteps approached. Ethan's manager. Miss Parker, can I have a word? I followed him towards the parking garage. Dead leaves swirled around our feet. I looked back. Asher sat alone in the hallway, looking small and vulnerable, as if he'd disappear the moment I turned away. Damn. The manager lit a cigarette. Ethan's like that. Impulsive. Forgets he has a whole company riding on him. If he goes down, we all go down. A black SUV was parked nearby. The window was down. Ethan sat inside with Chloe Simmons. She was crying, clinging to him. He was comforting her. I'd heard Chloe's name before the breakup. A new intern at Ethan's company. Clumsy woman, Ethan had said, lying next to me while he played video games. She couldn't get a full-time position, so she was crying in the corner. I asked her why, and guess what she said? What? I was answering work emails, swatting away his hand as he tried to nuzzle me. She said the boss asked her about her dream, and she said she wanted to have babies with the man she loved. Ethan laughed. Stupid, right? Of course she got fired. He told me this like a joke. I laughed too. Then he turned to me. What about you? Want to have mine? The basement was cramped, the summer air thick and heavy. The bathroom was right next to the bed. There was nowhere comfortable to sit except on the bed. Can you afford it? He grinned, returning to his game. You're so materialistic. Why do I even like you? I teased him back. Then find someone who will have your babies. He pretended to pinch my cheek. No way. I could never fall for someone like Chloe Simmons. The cigarette butt tumbled in the wind. The manager's voice brought me back to the present. So, Ethan needs someone to clean up his messes. Like me. He gestured with the cigarette. Like you. He offered me enough money to pay off my mortgage, and even buy a second condo for rental income. Years of hard work, and this amount of money was incredibly tempting. Besides, no one else would hire me now. I'd spent years building my career. I didn't want to throw it all away. Why me? Ethan said you were disgusting, chasing after money, the manager said with a wry smile. But I think someone who can get the job done and be discreet is valuable. You want me to be his assistant? No, he extinguished the cigarette. Chloe's assistant. He was concise. She's pregnant. Needs someone to take care of her. Ethan said you'd be perfect. Because you owe him. 6. When Ethan was 17, I was 16. We'd just finished our last year of compulsory education. I wanted to go to high school. My dad refused. He'd racked up gambling debts, abandoned my mom and me, and locked me in the house. She's old enough. Do whatever you want with her. I thought I was doomed. But that night, a hurricane, unlike anything our small town had ever seen, hit. I hid in the closet as the floodwaters rose. The men left, then returned. After a while, the noise stopped. Thunder rumbled. A flashlight beam sliced through the crack in the closet door. Someone was there. Bang! Bang! The lock splintered. Blinding light hit my face. It took a moment to see clearly. It was Ethan. He was soaked, covered in blood. As he pulled me into his arms, I realized he was trembling too. Ethan, don't be scared. He said he was taking me away. On the train, a film of dust and grime coated the window, blurring the memory of the town I'd grown up in, the town I feared. Quinn, we'll have our own place. The train stopped. The view outside cleared. Mansions. This was Ethan and Chloe's neighborhood. A place I could never afford, even if I worked my whole life. It was my second week as Chloe's assistant. Ethan was right. I was someone who would do anything for money. Dignity and self-respect were luxuries I'd never had. All I wanted was the security that money could buy. Quinn, do you think the baby will look more like me or Ethan? Chloe was kind to everyone. She'd lived a sheltered life. I entered the room, placing the shopping bags from the luxury boutiques in the walk-in closet. She trailed behind me, glancing at the bags without much interest. Look. She held up her phone. I booked my flight for tonight. Ethan was filming a show. She wanted to surprise him. I glanced at the sky. The first trimester is risky, and there's a major storm coming. I'm just letting you know. Her smile didn't waver. It was as if she only had one expression. You're not trying to stop me from seeing him, are you? No, just a reminder. Good. Don't be like the others. Just because you spend time around him doesn't make you special. She patted a face mask onto her skin and walked downstairs. Pack my things. You know I can't stand hotel slippers. The storm raged through the night. All flights were delayed. Hours later, they were cancelled. She insisted I find a way to get her on a plane. She had to surprise Ethan. My stomach churned. I managed to negotiate a few options. There's a connecting flight, or would you consider economy? She smiled, dropping the core of an apple into my hand. Do you really think I'm like you? She only flew first class. No flight, no surprise. We returned home. They make it sound so easy to book flights online, she said, scrolling through her phone. There's a reason you're still an assistant at your age. You should reflect on that. As the car neared the mansion, we saw Ethan's car pulling into the driveway. He was home early. Chloe shouted for the driver to stop. She ran out into the downpour and threw her arms around Ethan's waist. I couldn't hear what they were saying. I walked towards them, struggling with the luggage, but Ethan knocked the umbrella from my hand. Stop playing games, he yelled. I looked up, confused, to see Chloe's face, a mixture of concern and something else in Ethan's eyes. She's young and naive. You should have stopped her. He pulled her behind him, shielding her from the rain. Or were you deliberately trying to get her hurt? They stood under the eaves, dry and protected. I remained on the steps, the rain soaking through my clothes. I told her not to go. The housekeeper hurried out, taking the luggage from my hands. He's right, sir. Quinn tried to talk her out of it all afternoon. Ethan's anger seemed to dissipate. He should have known better. But he was worried, and in his mind, Chloe was always the vulnerable one, the one who needed protecting. Not me. 1:30 a.m. Chloe's voice drifted down from upstairs, a mix of petulance and affection. I was so busy, so tired today. I don't understand anything, and I just wanted to see you so badly. I finished packing Chloe's things, informed the manager I was leaving, and slipped out the side door. Finally, I could go home. As I stood in the rain, trying to hail a cab, I realized I hadn't eaten all day. My leg was throbbing where the luggage had scraped against it. Each step was a jolt of pain. I scrolled through my phone, my thumb brushing over Asher's contact photo. He hadn't contacted me since that night. He'd even returned every penny I'd ever given him. A clean break. Rain, late at night, no cabs. I walked along the dark, deserted streets of the gated community, feeling like I'd never escape. I hated nights like these. They always reminded me of 17-year-old Ethan. For a moment, I wished I could live forever in that memory on the train, with the man who loved me, a future full of hope. Unlike now, I didn't even know what I was trying to hold onto, or if there was anything left to hold. My phone buzzed. I thought it was a cab, but it was a text from an unknown number. Who do you think he'll believe? You or me? Then, Ethan's voice, sharp and commanding, on the phone, "Get back here." He hung up. I limped back to the mansion, my clothes soaked through. The door opened and I was met with accusing stares. The manager began the interrogation. You packed Chloe's bags today? Yes. Did you see a pink diamond? My heart sank. I knew what he was talking about. Before Ethan was famous, he couldn't afford to buy me gifts. On our anniversary, we'd stopped in front of a jewelry store window. "When I can buy this for you," he'd said, "we'll get married." It was a small pink diamond, less than a carat, priced at around $5,000. An impossible sum for us back then. "That's almost 2 years' rent," I'd said. A month later, we broke up. Ethan's career exploded. He used his first big paycheck to buy a multi-million-dollar pink diamond at Sotheby's. For Chloe. I didn't see it. "But," the manager pressed, "Chloe said she asked you to pack it, and now it's gone." Ethan sat silently on the couch, watching. "I can give you anything else," Chloe said, taking my hand. "But this was Ethan's first gift to me. Please don't steal it." I didn't take it. I looked directly at Ethan. "Are you really going to accuse me a second time?" It was so transparent. Couldn't he see that? Chloe tightened her grip, her nails digging into my skin. Tears welled in her eyes. "Why would you steal it? You were the one who left." The pain was sharp. I tried to pull away. "I told you, I didn't take it." But as I tugged, she fell to the floor. "Chloe." Ethan rushed to her side, pushing me aside. He cradled her in his arms. "My stomach," she whimpered, her performance unconvincing. "We're going to the hospital." He didn't yell at me. He didn't even look at me. His eyes were only for her. The hospital. The smell of antiseptic. Bad memories flooded back. Outside, the rain blended into the inky blackness of the night. Our reflections, Ethan and I, stared back at us from the window. In the hallway outside Chloe's VIP room, Ethan and I stood in rare silence. "I'll pay you. Just go. Don't ever appear in front of me again." His expression was cold, unreadable. "I didn't do it." "I know." He looked down. "I just don't want her upset because of you." My clothes, damp and then air-dried, clung uncomfortably to my skin. I should have changed. But I couldn't bring myself to take them off. They still held a trace of warmth, a warmth I hadn't felt in a long time. The warmth of someone caring. "Fine. Pay me what's in the contract. I'll work for as long as you pay." I turned to leave, but he scoffed. "Now you're acting all high and mighty?" Lightning flashed, the rumble swallowed by the thick hospital walls. "She was the one who was there for me after you left. You were too busy with your career. All you ever cared about was money. You never loved me. She's different. She's sweet, innocent. She doesn't understand these things. She loves me more than you ever did." Ethan looked up at me. "So you deserve this. Quinn Parker, you deserve to be unloved." The rain had been relentless. My ears were ringing. I could barely hear him or myself. "You think I never loved you? Didn't you prove that?" He laughed, a self-deprecating sound. "It all makes sense now. Even before we broke up, the day I almost didn't sign with the agency, she was there for me. Where were you?" A doctor called for family members at the end of the hall. But Ethan continued, as if he'd found his proof. "Busy working overtime? Sucking up to your boss?" He pressed, relentless. "Tell me, where were you that day?" "I was getting an abortion." He froze, as if he hadn't understood. "Ethan Cole, that day, I was in the hospital, getting an abortion." The doctor, seeing that we hadn't moved, walked over. "Miss Simmons isn't pregnant. Everything's fine. You can relax." He glanced at me, his professional eye taking in my disheveled appearance. "Your leg, that's a deep wound. Aren't you in pain? Find a way to break up with her. Pay her off, sign an NDA. Keep it quiet." 5 years ago, Ethan's former manager had advised him. It was part of the deal, signing with the agency. Ethan, playing with his phone, had mumbled his agreement. "You sure about this?" "Yeah." The manager then sent me the secretly recorded video, urging me to consider my options. "Our company doesn't allow relationships. He knows that better than anyone." After that, Ethan became clingy, but never mentioned breaking up. Why are you so busy lately? Do you not love me anymore? I pushed his head away. Why don't you go to work? Then you can pay the rent this month. With the contract looming, his manager had advised him against taking any acting jobs. He hadn't worked in 6 months. When I'm famous, we won't have to worry about rent. Signing a contract didn't guarantee success. Some people never made it, even with resources. And Ethan, without resources, it was like winning the lottery. But after all these years, I knew one thing for sure: lottery tickets weren't for people like me. I'll buy you that pink diamond. Are you crazy? Where would you get the money? I went to the bathroom to wash up. He leaned against the doorframe, trapping me inside. Quit your job. I'll put you up in a mansion. You won't have to work. My hand froze, the hot water burning my skin. The old apartment didn't have hot water. I had to boil water and mix it with cold water in a basin. I was always rushing to work, and I often forgot. Ethan, did you tamper with my birth control? His hand tightened on my waist, then withdrew. We can have it. What's wrong with that? Our baby. We make $2,000 a month combined. How are we going to afford a baby? I won't always be earning this little, he frowned. Besides, isn't that how normal people do it? Silence. A draft snaked through the gap under the door. Then what's the difference between us and our parents? I asked him. Having to watch every penny. Knowing from a young age that you're poorer than your classmates. Feeling guilty about spending money. Never daring to ask for what you want. Parents who can barely provide food and shelter. No support for your future, and no room for mistakes. You haven't even paid into Social Security all these years you've been an extra. Can you guarantee you'll become famous? Our child would be burdened with supporting us before they even learn to support themselves. Have you thought about any of this? How can you so casually say, let's have it? The hot water turned cold. The steam on the mirror cleared. Ethan, you lived through this. You want our child to go through the same thing? He looked down, his hand still holding mine. I just don't want you to leave me. I knew him too well. He wanted his career, but he didn't want to push me away. He wanted a family, he wanted love. He was afraid that if he asked for too much, I'd leave. Just like his parents had. So he stalled, hoping things would magically work out. And his solution was to trap me, to tie me to him with a child. No one would have to know. Quinn, why are you like this? He finally let go of my hand. It's so exhausting being with you. He turned, grabbed his jacket, and stormed out. He had friends, a support system, people who believed in his dreams of stardom. Unlike me. Because the morning after our fight, I still had to get ready, squeeze onto a crowded subway, and go to work. Did you see the trending news? That girl who had the CEO's baby jumped to her death. Seriously. It's all over the news. Happened at the maternity hospital next door. She didn't even get to step foot inside the Hale family mansion, died without seeing a cent of that fortune. What was she thinking? At least the Hales acknowledged her son after she died. That oldest son, right? The handsome one? Yeah, what was his name? A. The gossiping voices faded as I sat in the office bathroom stall. The only sound was the dripping faucet. I waited a minute. 2 pink lines appeared. I called Ethan. He didn't answer. He always did this. Ignored me when we fought. Back in the office, I asked my boss for a day off. What for? I'm not feeling well. Need to go to the hospital. You look fine to me. He eyed me suspiciously. What's wrong? Headache. Your attitude lately has been lacking. Remember, we hired you despite your lack of qualifications because of your experience. Don't get complacent. He turned away, dismissing me. 2 hours, tops. Go during dinner, then come back for the meeting. 6:30 p.m. I skipped dinner. I went to the maternity hospital next door for an examination. 6 weeks. The doctor pointed at the ultrasound image when she saw my blank expression. Your baby is right here. If you want a less expensive option, there's medical abortion. You can do it at home. Just take the pills, stay active, and come back for a follow-up. I clutched the report and rushed back to the office for the meeting. I got home after 11 p.m. The lights were on. Ethan was cleaning up a bag of chips. He glanced at me, then looked away. Ethan. I kicked off my shoes. I went to the hose. I stopped. A pair of pink slippers, not mine, sat by the door. He walked over and shoved them into the closet. Out of sight, out of mind. They were here earlier. Chloe couldn't stand wearing other people's slippers. You gave her my slippers? We only had 2 pairs. The other guys were barefoot. I couldn't exactly ask her to go without. He put his arm around me. Are you mad? It's just a pair of slippers. Don't bring her here. I shrugged him off. It wasn't just her. A whole group of people came over. I couldn't single her out. Why not? He pulled away, his eyes darkening. Take it out on me, not her. Ethan, I sighed, I've been working all day, I'm exhausted, I haven't even eaten. I don't want to fight. Like you're the only one who works hard, who gets tired. Get over yourself. He slammed the door on his way out. Again. He wouldn't be back tonight. How much longer could we keep doing this? I sank to the floor, hugging my knees. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, baby. I didn't want you to live a life like mine. I took time off work. Went to the hospital every day for 3 days. On the 3rd day, I took the pills. The pain was unbearable. I doubled over, clutching my stomach, but I forced myself to keep moving. In the hallway, a kind woman stopped. Honey, you don't look good. Call someone to come be with you. The pain was blinding. I fumbled for my phone, calling Ethan. He didn't answer. Wave after wave of agony. Blood. The doctor said I could go home and rest. I don't remember how I got back. I collapsed onto the bed and passed out. I woke up to the sound of a key in the door. Ethan, wake up. We're home. Why can't she be more like you? Ethan mumbled drunkenly. He opened the door, stopping Chloe from entering. Thanks for the ride. Text me when you get home. He steadied himself against the wall, trying to shake off the alcohol. He saw me on the bed. He didn't say anything. He just went to the kitchen and put on the kettle. But even after the water boiled, he didn't move. I sat up, a sharp pain shooting through my abdomen. The kitchen was small. He was crouching on the floor. Ethan was crying. I'd never seen him cry before. There were plenty of new talents. Plenty of people to promote. Especially someone like him, with baggage like me. He'd have other chances. But this was his only shot. I'm not signing, he said, looking up at me. I'll find a regular job, work nights. We'll save up, we can make it work here. We'll get a place with windows. Let's get married, okay? We'll have our own baby. We can be happy even without money. He spoke as if it were all within reach, as if all he had to do was grasp it. Ethan, I asked him, why did we leave everything behind to come here? 17-year-old Ethan was rebellious, wild, lost. No one had guided him. He hung out with other lost boys, getting into fights, skipping school, wasting his youth on a dead-end path. He stood in the alleyway, a cigarette dangling from his lips, the smoke curling around his beautiful, defiant face. They were teaching him to smoke. He lit one, holding it awkwardly between his fingers. His hands were smooth and clean. Ethan Cole. The group turned to look at me. My expression was flat. If you give up on yourself, I'm giving up on you. Ethan never touched another cigarette. He was handsome, he could sing. Everyone who met him said the same thing. He looks like a movie star. What a waste. The kettle clicked off, then reheated automatically. I got up, pulled out my suitcase, and began to pack. By the time I was finished, he'd composed himself. He watched me, his eyes cold. It didn't take long. I zipped up the suitcase and rolled it to the door. He blocked my way. People without resources can't make it in Hollywood, Ethan. I don't want to struggle with you. Wasn't I good to you? I can't spend years scraping by. This isn't the life I want. What if I make it big? You won't. What if I do? He grabbed my wrist, insistent. Ethan, even if you become a superstar, I won't come back. We both knew. Someone had to say it. If he couldn't, I would. I didn't want what a waste. I wanted him to succeed more than anyone. Because I loved 17-year-old Ethan more than anyone. But he said I never loved him. Come over here, let me take care of that. The doctor led me into another room, then gestured down the hallway. Mr. Cole, Miss Simmons is fine. You can go see her now. He didn't move. His fingers gripped my sleeve. Mr. Cole, the doctor said, exasperated, if we don't clean this wound, it'll get infected. It needs stitches. Antiseptic stung my skin. I flinched. Does it hurt? Ethan's voice was rough. It won't be too bad. We'll use anesthetic, the doctor assured him. Does it hurt? He repeated, his grip tightening on my sleeve, but he didn't dare touch my hand. Only he and I knew what he was really asking. Anesthetic costs extra, I said, looking up at him. And I didn't have the money. He knew. He knew everything. Ethan. The manager rushed towards us. Chloe's having a meltdown. She's threatening to hurt herself with scissors. Ethan's gaze flickered towards Chloe's room, his hand still on my sleeve. Go, I said, gently pulling his hand away. The manager led him away. The door closed. The doctor continued stitching my leg. A little pinch. There. Just look out the window if you're scared. Outside, the rain had finally stopped. I was terrified of hospitals. The smell of antiseptic. 2 weeks after breaking up with Ethan, I was in a meeting when a sharp pain ripped through my lower abdomen. I didn't even make it to the bathroom. Blood. So much blood. I collapsed just steps away, unable to move. It soaked through my pants, staining the carpet a horrifying crimson. Oh my God, you're bleeding. A colleague rushed to my side, helping me up. She called for help, for someone to take me to the hospital. Her arms were so warm. A warmth I hadn't felt in so long. The warmth of someone simply being there. The doctor said the abortion hadn't been complete. I needed A, D, and C. Where's your family? My colleague scrolled through my phone contacts. There was no one to call. She's losing too much blood. We need consent. The nurse urged. I'll sign. I'll take responsibility. My colleague signed the forms. The pain was so intense I couldn't scream. The cold seeped into my bones, and I felt like I was back in that closet, drowning in a pile of old clothes. Among them, a dress my mother had bought me for my 5th birthday. Which one do you want, sweetie? She'd asked. I would always look at her face, gauging her reaction. I would choose the one she seemed to prefer. I picked a light blue dress, with a little girl holding an umbrella in the rain. It didn't matter which one. As long as my mother was happy with me. Good girl, she'd said. I rarely got to spend a whole afternoon with her. But that day, I did. It was my birthday. When you were born, she'd said, the pain was so bad I couldn't even scream. I thought, if I could, I'd wish for you to never have to go through that. But if you do, I hope you have someone who loves you very, very much by your side. She never came home after that. My dad said she'd run off with another man. Abandoned me. No one celebrated my birthday after that. Until Ethan. He used his summer job earnings to buy me a light blue umbrella. Because I always walked to school in the rain. He'd somehow managed to get a small cake. We huddled in a dark corner, the summer night stretching endlessly before us. The only light came from a single candle. "Don't blow it out yet, silly," he'd said, smiling. "Make a wish first." I didn't know what to wish for. I was afraid that anything I wished for would eventually leave me. So I took his hand and lied. I made one. I'd hold onto that wish, that moment. Maybe, someday, when I couldn't take it anymore, when he was gone, maybe I'd need it. See? I was so clever. Tears streamed down my face as I listened to the clanging of surgical instruments. If wishes really came true. "Mom, it hurts so much. Please, send someone who truly loves me, someone who will never leave." I woke up. The rain had stopped. I reached for my phone, but my hand missed. Someone placed it in my hand. "Here." It was a face so much like 17-year-old Ethan. I was such a terrible person. "Who are you?" "Asher." Even his name. I laughed, then I started crying. Loud, uncontrollable sobs. I didn't even know what I was crying about. When I was finally spent, he was still there. "Why are you here?" "Visiting my mom." "Where is she?" "She said she was going to be an angel." He pointed to the window across from my bed. "Flew away, through there." "What's in your hand?" "Porridge." He smiled wryly. "She made me promise to make it for her. Said mine was the best. So I went home and made it. When I came back, she was gone." "Liar." "But I'm not. I keep my promises. I bring her porridge every day." The ward was busy, people coming and going. But no one approached him. I held out my hand. "Can I have some?" He hesitated, then handed me the thermos. It was good. Really good. "How much?" "I'll pay you back." He looked at the empty thermos, amused. "Do you want me?" I looked up, meeting his gaze. The stitches were done. Walking was difficult. As the doctor left the room, I saw the housekeeper from the mansion hurrying towards us. "Mr. Cole, we found Miss Simmons' diamond." She stopped Ethan in the hallway. "It was in the closet, safe and sound. Quinn didn't take it." Ethan took the diamond and told the housekeeper to look after Chloe. He leaned against the doorframe, his black shirt unbuttoned at the collar, watching me. Really watching me. It had been a long time since we'd looked at each other like this. "I'll take you home." The car sped through the city streets. The rain had stopped, but the sky was still overcast. He pulled up to a luxury high-rise I didn't recognize. "Ethan, this isn't my..." He opened the door, leaned in, and lifted me into his arms. The elevator shot upwards. The doors opened onto a breathtaking view of the city lights from the 71st floor. He gently placed me on the marble countertop in the foyer. "Want some water?" "I want to go home." He ignored me, loosening his tie as he walked to the bar and poured himself a whiskey. I slid off the counter, limping towards the door. Locked. Both locks, inside and out, required his fingerprint. "What is this?" I demanded, turning to face him. He'd poured the drink, but hadn't touched it. His eyes were dark, but his expression wasn't quite clear. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Tell you what?" "So you could..." "What? Keep it? Have the baby?" "Yes." He walked towards me, gripping my wrists. "If you'd just stayed hidden for a few years, you could be Chloe now. Why couldn't you just listen to me?" I struggled, meeting his gaze. "If I'd had that baby, you wouldn't be where you are today. Don't gamble with a child's life. And I'm not Chloe." He didn't understand. His grip tightened, his voice thick with emotion. "Are you happy now? Is this the life you wanted?" "My life isn't as good as yours because the world isn't fair. I didn't get lucky like you. Hard work wasn't enough. That doesn't mean my choice was wrong." "And now?" He pulled me closer, the pain radiating through my wrists. "Now I have everything. Why can't we be together?" I pulled free, taking the pink diamond from his jacket pocket. "What about Chloe?" He looked away, putting the diamond back in his pocket. She's good to me. Ethan, I said, all the fight draining out of me. That's why we can't be together. It wouldn't have been Chloe. It would have been someone else. But it would never be me again. His phone buzzed. Chloe. He let go of my wrists and went to the balcony to answer the call. I watched his face as he spoke to her, and I felt nothing. The secret I'd carried for 5 years, the blood I'd lost, it all seemed to dissipate, dissolving into the air the moment I'd spoken the words. I couldn't see 17-year-old Ethan in him anymore. I realized I'd been in love with a memory. He came back inside, still talking. Just give me some time. I'll take care of it. Just wait for me. Kept. Just like Chloe. What was the difference between us? We were both just accessories in his self-made fairy tale. He locked the doors again, imprisoning me. I considered calling the police. But I knew his stubbornness. He believed I belonged to him, that I could never escape. During the 2 weeks he kept me there, he made sure I was well taken care of. The best food, the finest clothes. He even filled a closet with Hermes bags, despite knowing I didn't care for such things. It was a gilded cage. He even set up a nursery, as if we were living a blissful newlywed life. Quinn, isn't this what we wanted? I did it. He seemed to relish creating this fantasy, except for the occasional calls from Chloe, which he always took in the study away from me. I closed my book and stepped onto the balcony for some air. The night was clear. Perfect visibility. My phone buzzed. Do we still look alike? A familiar voice asked. I turned, looking at Ethan through the glass doors of the study. No, I said into the phone. Time had changed so much, distorted everything. Run, babe, Asher said. Run to me. When Ethan finished his call, I was back on the couch. He kissed my forehead. Be good. I have to take care of something. He was leaving. Going back to Chloe. He paused at the door, looking back at me. I smiled. Like I used to, countless mornings in that basement apartment, as he left for work. Goodbye, Ethan Cole. His face fell. His eyes lingered on my unusually soft expression. I'll be back. I nodded. The door closed, the elevator descended. The wind howled outside, an unusual sound. A child next door ran to their balcony. Daddy, a helicopter. Ethan, in the elevator, headed for the underground parking, didn't hear. He pulled out of the garage, stopping at a red light. The moon was bright. The sky was clear. He glanced in the rearview mirror and saw a helicopter rising from the roof of the building he'd just left. He tapped his fingers on the steering wheel, dismissing it. His phone rang again. Chloe. He felt a prickle of irritation. The light turned green. He hit the gas, the memory of my smile flashing through his mind. We'd known each other for so long. A single expression was all it took. I'd seen the indifference in his eyes. He'd seen the change in mine. Ethan slammed on the brakes, making a U-turn. He raced back to the building, taking the elevator to the 71st floor. The apartment was empty. Epilogue. 16 years later, Ethan Cole, no longer an actor, was a successful film producer. When asked why he never married, he just smiled and changed the subject. Some whispered that he'd left acting due to health reasons. You can't drink anymore. The doctor's brow was furrowed as he reviewed the test results. Removing the entire tumor is too risky. I can't do it here. You need to go to a specialist in the US. I have a former classmate, she knows someone there, a brilliant surgeon. Also Chinese. He pulled up a photo on his phone. Ethan glanced at it, then froze. What? You don't trust her? The doctor raised an eyebrow. She was a legend in our class. Started med school late, but she's incredible. Ethan laughed, covering his face with his hands. He didn't move. After a while, the doctor realized he was crying. He hadn't cried when he received the diagnosis, not through the agonizing chemotherapy, Not even when he learned he might only have a few years left. It was as if he'd already died, long ago, on some rainy night. But today, the dam finally broke. I looked for her for so long, never imagined it would end like this. He'd imagined countless scenarios. Her with someone else. Maybe, if she was lucky, married. More likely, abandoned. Working some dead-end job. He'd never imagined her standing where she was now, radiating brilliance, a place someone from her background shouldn't be able to reach. In this moment, he finally understood what she'd said. Her life wasn't as good as his, not because she hadn't tried, but because the world wasn't fair. She hadn't gotten lucky. Hard work wasn't enough. But her choice wasn't wrong. If fate had dealt her a different hand, everything would have been different. She was right. She wasn't Chloe Simmons. Are you still going to the US for treatment? No, Ethan pointed to his head. I deserve this.